right, we're going to kind of pivot away here and start talking some Jefferson stuff. When you three walk in this gym today, is there any specific memories or certain games that you think of when you come into this gym?
Well, I've got one, Jack, that you and I will never forget. The one at Augsburg. Doesn't mean this gym here.
Right.
In fact, I don't know when I was coaching if I ever coached in this gym. When was this open?
70.
70? Oh, then I must have.
I've blocked them out too, lady.
Yeah.
Too painful, right?
Yeah.
But the game at Augsburg that you and I had, that I'll never ever forget. What was the name of the guard that made the? There's 6 seconds to go.
Oh, yeah.
6 seconds to go. We had just scored. Go up by 1. Were you at the game?
Because I probably had brothers on that team. I might be able to remember this.
Yeah.
Andy Rechtenwald?
Rechtenwald, right, he was
Was
a
that-
soccer player,
Is
yeah.
that the kid?
Yeah.
No, correct me on this one, but 6 seconds to go. We had just scored to go up 1. Timeout. Get the kids together. We're going to go 3/4 court, soft press. Make him get the ball as close to the baseline as possible. So he's got 80, or in Augsburg, 94 feet to go. And no foul, can't foul. But main goal is to make him try to get the ball close to the baseline and don't let him go long. Hey, where'd the guy get the ball?
Top of the circle, man.
No, right 10, 12 feet from the baseline. So, right away I'm going, hey, baby. So this, you sure was that was his name? Rechtenwald?
Rechtenwald, yeah.
So he takes the ball, got a defender on him, and he goes up the right side of the court. My bench is over on this side of the timeline. He gets, I'm saying, you help me, 8, 10 feet on this side of the timeline. And so my vision is him and the basket, right in the same line. And he lets that sucker go, and it did not hit the backboard.
No.
It went right down the drain, and we lost that game. I don't have nightmares about it, but it's never left my mind. And then you told me later that if any of your kids could make that shot, it would be him. And I think my recollection was that he took 2 shots the whole game.
Well, he hadn't scored much.
Yeah. Jack Evans, yeah. Jack, my buddy Jack. And I don't know how many questions you're going to ask, but I got to get this in and I'll jump in there. Jack and I go back, and the other guys on this panel can't talk about what I'm going to talk about, because Jack and I played against each other. That's correct, right? You guys never played against Jack? So let me tell you, Jack Evans was a fine basketball player. And you can relate it to some degree to his coaching. He was smooth. He was intense. He knew what he wanted to do. Not real fast. First step was okay. But then he had that great release and could light it up if you didn't defend him. And a pleasure to play with and a pleasure to play against.
Bob, how about walking in this gym? How did any...
Jefferson's always was a thorn in our side, I know that. In fact, I went back and looked at some of our scores and so on, and this is actual figures now, we were 8-17 against Jack, 8-17. So, and I believe 4 times your team beat us. I mean, our final tournament game, final loss was to you guys in 77. And I think 3 other times you were the one that beat us in the tournament. And so, yeah, it was always tough to go against your teams. And
I never scored a bucket, but look at these kids up there. They're some good kids.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, when I come in this gym, it's like I've never been here before. You know,
That's kind of the feeling I had.
I was kidding when I said to you, lady, you must have blocked it out, but I
Well,
don't,
they've done different things with the bleachers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
yeah. But, yeah, Jefferson was the ultimate, you know, they looked good, they were good, they were confident. I remember the first time I saw Jefferson, that was in football, and I was on the chain gang at Wayzata my first year in '70, and they came out and did their pregame and stuff, and I thought, this isn't fair. You know, I mean, a college team is playing this little Wayzata, and but it was kind of the same way in basketball. I mean, you guys were so, you know, just sharp, well coached, classy, and tough to beat.
Do you guys remember any I know Bobby talked about the regional final game in '83 when Wassenaar hit that half-court shot. Do you guys remember any other specific games? Well, you just talked about,
Yeah.
Whitey, about the regional game at Augsburg. Anything else? Any other certain games against the Jaguars that you remember that just stick in your head?
Well, I've got one because we won it. It was in the tournament. We were playing over at Edina Gym. What do you call it? The East Gym? Yeah. And you guys were just kicking us. You know, I don't remember. It must have been about 88 or, no, it was later than that. It must have been 90, 91. But you were beating us as was expected. And I think it was like 30-17 at halftime. So it was, I don't know how I can remember that score. Somebody better check me on that.
Sound good.
He was on the team. Yep.
Who was?
I was on that team.
Oh, really? And all of a sudden, we started just shooting the ball like crazy. I mean, everything was going in. What was the final? But we won the game.
Yeah, by 2, I think.
Yeah, and I've never had a team play, you know, as inspired a half as we did against Jefferson. So I remember a lot of games just in the playing of it, but I can't remember the score, I can't remember the settings, but I do remember that one. So the other ones, I assume we lost.
So, getting ready to play a Jefferson team coached by Jack Evans, was there any different type of preparation that you'd have to do that you can recall playing against his teams during those seasons? Anything that you remember that might be different?
I always picture the two chasers out in front and the three big guys back to get the rebound.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that was pretty good strategy. I mean, trying to force us to take one shot, and I don't know if that's the way you looked at it, but that's the way it always seemed to us, that, you know, that same defense was out there. We know what defense they were going to play. And so...
There were no surprises. I mean,
No, there were no surprises.
You knew what Jack was going to do. You're going to sit in that 2-3 and rebound the hell out of the ball.
Yep.
And then what that did in my mind was create. Back then, we never had the word tempo brought up, but now that's all you hear. You know, I need this tempo, or whatever. And Jack created that with his preparation, his defense, and it seemed to me like. When we practiced, we knew what he was going to do. Of course, he probably knew what we were going to do too. But I think the execution was excellent. He had great court coverage, and like Bob said, they rebounded the ball real well. And I respect the Jefferson philosophy because it was successful and hard to match.
Craig, anything that you remember from, you know, preparing to play against one of his teams?
Yeah, I think you'd always have to go to your zone offense, and that was scary. I knew a lot of that. We didn't have the shooters, we didn't have the ball handlers, and we were just, it was going to be tough. So I'd try something different each time, you know. I remember one year I went to a pick game in a zone, and that was not usual. I don't know where I got the idea. Didn't work. But, you weren't content in just going out there and playing them. You knew something had to, we talked before about it, playing above your expectation or your capabilities. You just about had to have something really good happen. And so I don't know, practice, prep, I just remember zones, And there's nothing against the zones.
In 83, they're playing their zone and we're playing a matchup. And 2 of our games were in the 30s. Both teams were in the 30s. You don't expect that.
No.
But,
We would tell our kids that we get 50 tonight, we're going to win.
yeah.
We get the 50,
Yeah.
and it was pretty much true. Jack would always, be in the high 40s, and we'd be in the low 40s. And we never hit that 50 mark, or not as much as I wanted to.
All right, next question. I'll bring my dad into this conversation because he was part of this program as well as one of the coaches, and just their partnership was always, let me say this about Coach Evans is I think sometimes when you have a coach, and it doesn't have to be a high school, it could be a college or professional coach, and especially a head coach that has a lot of success, sometimes the ego gets kind of big and you want to be so controlling over everything that goes on. And Coach Evans was so good with my dad and valued kind of what my dad thought. That's my memory is you could easily have been after the state championships, kind of want to dominate everything that went on, but you really valued and did a good job of bringing him into part of coaching the team too.
Oh, yeah, well, we coached together, and well, the one person was 2. And
Right.
I valued his opinion as much as my own.
Right. So what do you guys remember about my dad as a coach and also Jack? Give me 1 or 2 or 3 words of describing Jack and describing
I'd say,
Jack.
first of all, I had the greatest respect for him. I always considered you guys as equals. I really did. And I just saw him as a great friend and so on. And I think one of the biggest contributions he made to Jefferson basketball was his sons. So,
Whitey?
Yeah, I think the coaching staff was held in high esteem from virtually every school or opponent. When you played Jefferson, you knew you were in for a real ball game, and you had to play your best. And those 2 guys, in my own mind, were instrumental in working together to create. Well, dynasty might be a good word, because your record, Jack, is, I think you won over 500 ball games, didn't you? And, there's not a lot of people that can say that they've won 500 ball games. So, congratulations.
Jake was never, sometimes you go through the week, you're teaching 5 hours, got 2 games. We always practice every Saturday. And I get tired tonight, and we should go out and scout. And Jake, we'll go. He was always willing to do the extra
Yeah,
and contribute when he was there.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought, when you asked the question, I thought of a partnership, because when you were, if I was out scouting, oftentimes I'd be by myself, but when you guys were out, you always had the 2 of you. Not always, but the majority of the time, if you didn't have a game, and you sit up high in the back, the 2 of you, and I thought, that's not fair.
We'd sit up high, not by the family, so that we can't hear what the parents are talking about our colleague down there coaching.
Here's another question. How important do you think is stability and continuity in a basketball program, just to have keeping, you see some schools, some high schools that just the turnovers of coaches, a new coach and then another new coach and another, it's make those programs struggle, whereas kind of having some stability there in the coaching department is key to winning or success.
How many years, Jack? How many years here did you
Well,
coach? 20-something, right?
26,
26
27
years. Well, that kind of sums it up, doesn't it, Kevin? If you have, stability, it plays a big role in providing continuity in your program, and as a result of the continuity, success. And then that brings in your dad. I mean, was he here with you for that length of time? There you
No, he
go.
was 20 of the,
Oh, only 20?
yeah.
Okay. But I think that plays a big role and allows for expectations to be met a lot easier from the player standpoint and from the coaching staff. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, young kids sitting in the stands, watching the coaches on the sideline, realizing someday I'd like to be there playing for those guys, and they know it's a good program and they want to be a part of it. And I think that stability is a very important thing.
How about, like you said, Bob, just, because that was me when I was a kid, watching my father coach, watching my older brothers play. I mean, that game in '83, when you guys had a really good team, and Jimmy's team, when you guys beat Jefferson by 1 here early in that season, I had to miss that game because I had a traveling game that night. So that was one of the few games of watching one of my older brothers play at Jefferson that I missed. And I was so mad, and it gutted me that Jefferson lost because I broke a long winning streak too,
34 we had.
34 games. And so talk about the coach, the high school coaches, the head coach, and your responsibility to build the program and try to reach those kids that are coming up, and to get them motivated to look forward to being a varsity player on your team one day. What were some of the things you guys used to do to get to those young kids?
Well, when I came to Wayzata in '70, we didn't have a program as such, and maybe a lot of them didn't, but we were backward, and for sure. But to get the kids involved, we used our players as coaches. So we didn't have parents. I struggled and tried to prevent parents from taking over. And so I fought that for years. We were one of the last teams to ever have a traveling team. I just believed it's healthier, it's better for kids if we can use our kids as players. Our kids as coaches, players that they didn't know how to coach necessarily, but they knew a little basketball. So Saturday mornings they were there coaching and trying to make sense out of what we were doing. But for me, if I went back and did it over again, I'd do it the same way. I'd eliminate some of the traveling, and if you had a traveling, not use parents. And if you had a little mini ball, or no, we call it biddy ball. Pretty clever, huh? We'd call it biddy ball if you were in that 4th or 5th grade. But all our coaches were our players. So I just think that was a good way to do it. I felt comfortable